Okay, when the mayor gets here, we'll be ready to go. And a few more council members, I guess.
Thought maybe you had heard if somebody wasn't going to attend.
There's Jeffrey.
Can you hear me, Denise?
Yep, I can. And you're not on your cell phone and not at a basketball game.
I'm in Morgan today, so it's good to be back.
Good for you.
Oh, good. Maybe your internet won't time out on us.
Ty, it looks like Mandy Webb has joined the meeting, so
Okay.
she'll probably do the update.
Okay, perfect. Hi, Mandy.
Oh, can you hear me? How are you?
Yeah, now I can.
Sorry. I guess it helps if you unmute, right?
Yeah. And okay,
I just sent Skylar the link again, so I'm hoping she'll be able to get in.
is that Skylar?
That is
Yes.
me.
Okay.
Oh, she's in. Awesome.
Here.
Okay.
I was going to say we have two Amanda Webbs.
Yeah. So it's Skylar Pyle, right?
It is.
I like how the health department people keep their mask on even though they're on Zoom. That's very safe.
I'm actually in a room where other people are in this room with me, so we have to continue to do our safety precautions at the pod. We actually are just wrapping up right now, so everybody's kind of coming through and entering and exiting at this moment.
You ready, Denise?
Yep, we're ready to go.
Okay, at 6 o'clock, so we'll start off.
Okay.
We'd like to start this meeting, the Morgan City Council meeting, February 9th is 6 o'clock. And I'd like to welcome all those that are here on Zoom and those that may be listening, want to listen in on the other formats are available. With that said, welcome here. We'd like to have Pledge of Allegiance. Ty, can you put up the flag for us? And then we'll ask David Alexander if he would lead us in the pledge. And then we'll ask Eric Turner if he would offer opening ceremony for us. So, David?
Did you get that?
We'll do it again.
You can hear me now. Okay,
All right.
we're ready.
It went through the whole thing. Okay, thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we come before Thee at this time. We're thankful that we can gather as a city council. We're thankful for this beautiful valley in which we live. We're grateful for the people that make it great. Father, we pray that this night we go about the city's business, that Thy Spirit will be upon us, that we'll be able to make the decisions that we need to for our citizens, and remember them in our decisions tonight, that we'll be able to do the will of the people. And Father, we're grateful for our many blessings, and we say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
I'd like to thank David, and we'd like to thank Eric for opening ceremonies and also for the pledge. Thank you for doing that. First on the consent agenda is our City Council electronic meeting minutes of January 26th and the one set of warrants. I'll open it up for the council for any questions you may have, and or a motion when you're ready.
Mayor, I don't have the minutes look correct to me, but just a question that I had last meeting on the Rhinell Business Park. The staff report said that gave the size of the building lots, but the MD zone did not have a minimum lot size or minimum frontage requirement. Is that by design or is that something that needs to be considered? Maybe.
Good question. Gary, can you help answer that? As far as the MD zone, our current MD zone doesn't have requirement for minimum lot size and setbacks, those kind of things. Is that common in MD zones, manufacturing zones, or is that something we should look at and take into consideration?
That's pretty common when it comes to commercial zones and manufacturing zones, to reduce the landscaping and to allow the building to be pushed out further to the street. I think it's a 10% landscaping requirement, so they still have to find a place where they can put 10% landscaping. But I don't, I'll double check to make sure there are no standards for the MD zone, but I'm 90% sure that there are not.
As far as lot sizes, minimum lot size and that kind of thing.
Yeah, our industrial zone has the same flexibility.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, David, for the question.
Yeah, thank you. That's all. Thank you.
Anybody else have questions on the minutes or the warrants or a motion?
Mayor,
Tony,
I will make a motion that we accept the city council electronic meeting minutes from January 26, 2021 and the warrants.
is there a second?
I'll second.
Is that David?
Yes.
Motion by Tony, second by David, that we accept the city council electronic meeting minutes of January 26th and one set of warrants. Is there any discussion on the motion for the minutes and the warrants? Okay. Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. Just give me a thumbs up on this. All those in favor of the warrants? Okay, we got five ayes. Okay. Anybody opposed? Yeah, okay. Motion passes 5 in favor of that motion for the warrants and the minutes. We'll now move on to verbal presentations. Denise, would you introduce our guest for us, please? First off, at least getting ready to unmute, I'd like to, just say that we appreciate Mandy, or Amanda, whichever we know her by, for the many things she does for Morgan School District and the city. Appreciate her being part of our community and the influence she gives us. Okay, Denise, I'll let you introduce our guests.
Okay, we have Skylar Pyle. She's with the Weber Morgan Health Department, and also Amanda Webb. And Amanda, can you let us know? I don't remember what Skylar's position is with the health department. Can you let us know what that is?
Yes, I hope you can hear me okay. She's our emergency manager at our health department. So she's in charge of all of these vaccine pods, and she's amazing. She's trying to coordinate it all. It's pretty crazy, but she's doing a great job.
Good. Thank you.
Skylar, we'd love to hear from you. If you want to unmute yourself, we'd love to hear from you and give you this update and information you've got for us.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for allowing me some time to present to you guys tonight. We are very excited about the work that we're doing in Weber and Morgan counties. We want to start by just giving a really great shout out and a say thank you to all of the individuals in our community. Without the support that we've got, we would not be able to do these things. And it is the incredible support and dedication of these individuals and our agency partners in Weber and Morgan. We want to give a big shout out to Weber State University and the D Event Center, their staff and police, all of the police and fire departments, especially up there in Morgan Fire Department has been instrumental in supporting our efforts to be able to even do points of dispensing. Our Medical Reserve Corps volunteers are amazing for everything that they've done for us, our Weber Health Department staff, as well as anybody else that has helped us in support of our efforts moving forward, has been very instrumental in us being able to do these points of dispensing. In Morgan County, specifically, we have just had our second dispensing clinic today. So our first clinic was 200 folks that we did on geez, if I can remember the exact day. I cannot right off the top of
It was the last of January. Yes, the last Tuesday in January.
Tuesday in January, right? And then today was our second pod that we did, where we ended up doing 300 doses today. February 23rd is going to be the first time that we do second doses, so we're excited about that in our county. As well as community nursing services has been a very instrumental part of being able to get all of your educators done. And I think that we have all of them but 13 that were still interested in receiving the vaccinations that were possibly able to come today, or community nursing services is going to get them done within this week. So we've got all of your educators done up there in Morgan. That's with charter schools, parochial and private schools as well that might be up there with the public school district. We've been doing vaccinations here since December 29th was our first vaccination clinic that we did. And since then, we have done about, let me see here on my information, I think that we've held 10 vaccination clinics. And in that time, including community nursing services along with us, helping us to support with our educators, we have vaccinated over 15,000 people with their first dose. And we are rolling into about our 2,000 second doses at this time. So we've just started second dose clinics this week here in Weber County. The vaccination clinics are going really well. We have a very solid process in place where people come in, they get screened, they have some COVID questions that are asked of them. And then if they have an appointment, they move into registration where they get any questions that they have asked, answered for them. And then they are able to receive their vaccination card, which indicates what manufacturer dose that they've received, as well as when their second dose it's really not their second dose, but the soonest that they're able to receive their second dose. Moderna is 28 days and Pfizer is 21 days from how soon they're able to receive their doses. They're in Morgan County. We're only using Moderna at this time. So everybody has a 28-day waiting period before they can receive their second dose. As I indicated, February 23rd is the first date that we'll be doing second doses there in Morgan County. After that process, they move into dispensing and receive their dose, and then they move into our waiting area. And I do know that we just moved into a new church just off of the side of the freeway there, instead of Rock Church that we were at the first time. Really great location, but we did decide that we needed a little bit more space, especially once we start those second doses and we have 400 to 500 people moving through the pod at one time. We want to ensure that there's enough space to still have our social distancing that we have going on. Coming up, we are just increasing our dosage amount. The state continues to allocate us more and more. Weber and Morgan County are 8.3% of the state allocation. So given whatever the state receives, which is different every week, at this time, we are able to confirm the doses that we're going to receive on Thursdays for what arrives on Monday. So it's a very fluid process at this moment. We are receiving information sometimes hourly. The information changes from what we received in the morning to what we hear in the afternoon for the process. So it is a very fluid process at this moment, and everybody is working very diligently to accommodate those changes that we need to make in the points of dispensing, as well as just generally in the process that we have going on and the planning that we have. But our doses are increasing significantly as we go. So we are creating partnerships with community nursing services, as well as Intermountain Healthcare right now. We have just created a partnership with to do points of dispensing in small clinics and other areas. We do plan to start doing mobile clinics maybe in, we want to try to say that we want to do them in March, but I want to say probably closer to April. Right now we are a high throughput process. And so because we have a high throughput location, that is what we're focusing most of our efforts on. And the majority of our staff are being used to do those high throughput. So just to give you an idea of what we're doing here in Weber County, tomorrow we have 2,300 people coming in the 6 hours that we'll be holding a point of dispensing. And we are also doing those second doses. So this week, Weber Morgan will have done over 9,000 doses, first and second doses this week alone. You know, we're just continuing to go. We don't see a stopping point for this moving forward. So we're just continuing to increase the days that we're able to do points of dispensing here, as well as probably will increase those in Morgan as well, as it moves on until we get 70% or more of our population inoculated. Does anybody have any questions that I can answer for you?
Owner, I heard Governor Young, Spencer Young, the other day on a call-in show, and he was talking about the increased number of doses that would be coming to the state. Can you speak to that, or?
Well, as I indicated that they do plan to increase our dosage. I don't know exactly what those numbers look like at this time, again, because we're 8.3% of whatever the state allocation is. At this moment, the Weber Morgan Health Department is receiving about 4,000 doses every week on Mondays. And then as well, we have our second doses that come on Tuesdays and Wednesdays for those individuals. So, but I do hear that they do plan to increase it pretty significantly. Like maybe we might start receiving 10,000 doses possibly moving forward. We are a little limited right now on our capabilities. Our staff is tapped out. We have utilized all the staff members that we have at the county, with keeping just a skeleton crew opened at the health department for the regular health department duties that still need to be done on a regular basis. And our MRC program has been very robust. However, those individuals are only available when they're available. Therefore, we can't count on them all the time. But again, I'm trying to create partnerships all over town right now so that we can ensure that we are able to handle all of those doses that continue to come to us.
Do you have any percentages of the maybe the completion of the target population in the phase 1 group?
You know, I don't know. When I look into like healthcare workers, we are pretty good at knowing our first responders, which we feel like we got everybody that wanted to get done. We were able to ensure that we got all of our first responders done in Morgan and Weber County. Our educators as well. I think that we hit a good close to 7,000 or 8,000 of that number. So the other individuals that did not get done was because of their choice to not get the vaccination. The 70 plus population, I think we're almost through with your particular 70 plus. There are about 1,200 individuals that fell into that category, and some came to our pod here, as well as we've done them up there in Morgan. Here in our town, it was about 21,000 was our number here. And so we're getting closer to that, but I'm only receiving so much dosage. So we're definitely filling those numbers up and doing 3,000 every single week that comes to me. But it's going to take a while before we get through that 70 plus population for sure. But I think that we've done pretty good at just continuing that effort. And the healthcare workers though, I received about 600 businesses and their emails for healthcare workers in that first week that we started doing points of dispensing. And I know that hardly any of them chose to come and get the doses when we had them available as a priority. And so I think we still have a lot of healthcare workers that are kind of on a wait list now. That's the process that we are using at this time because our scheduling process didn't work out as well as we had planned. We're working with the state of Utah right now to ensure that we get a better application for our scheduling. But at this time, we're using our wait list roster, which has got about 15,000 people on it at this moment, which includes everybody from the eligible population.
Yeah, thank you. It seems like maybe a 70% vaccination of an entire population seems to be a little bit of a target. Maybe it's a little bit too early to tell, but do you think we're on track to maybe hitting those goals?
I definitely think so. Again, it's really that we just don't have the doses. And even if we did, like I said, it's a little hard with our staff capabilities. I mean, we're pretty tapped out at this moment, but no, I don't think that it's unrealistic to think that we might be able to hit that 70% of that population probably by like June or July timeframe is more realistic of when we might be able to get 70% of the population taken care of. Thank you. But it's, you know, the doses are coming pretty slowly. Before we were only receiving like 1,500 doses or, and now we've gotten ourselves up to 3,500 at this time. But there's really just no way to tell. And now that the pharmacies are kind of coming on board, we're really hoping that they're successful. The federal pharmacy program wasn't as successful with the long-term cares as we were hoping. But, you know, now that Walmart and Smith's and Associated Foods and whatnot are coming on board, hopefully they have a good process to where they might be able to help support that effort.
Yeah, thank you.
Skylar, do you have an idea what the next target group might be? Has that been put out yet?
Absolutely. On Thursday, the governor did make his announcement that on March 1st, 65 and older are going to be eligible to receive the vaccination. And then he also indicated that 18-year-old with comorbidities are also going to be eligible. So 18 and older with multiple comorbidities. There's a list that they have for the individuals, I guess, to go off of. I also heard his announcement that it will be an honor system. That people will not be required to show if they have any of these comorbidities, like they won't have to go get a doctor's note to be able to show us. So again, I'm not sure how well we'll be able to process that at this time, but starting March 1st, 65 and older, and then 18 and older with multiple comorbidities will be eligible to schedule an appointment.
Thank you. Any other questions for Skylar or Mandy? God, I can't imagine the stuff that you deal with as far as the numbers and the process and trying to get people to help. It's got an amazing task. I would thank you and thank your coworkers for what you're doing for us as a community. So thank you.
Absolutely. We truly appreciate all of the support that we can get. And I just want you guys to know, if you want to thank anybody in your area, please give a big shout out to your fire department, because they have truly put the pod together up there. And with Amanda Webb's support, they have gotten it done. They have vaccinated 500 people already in your town, and the fire department there in Morgan, and Austin Turner, the emergency manager that you guys have up there, have really been instrumental in our ability to even do a point of dispensing in your town. So it's wonderful support that you guys have provided for us. So thank you so much for everything that you guys have done as well.
Welcome. Thank you. Okay, I don't see James or Denise on yet. Denise, they made any contact with you?
They did with me, Mayor. So yeah, they're still in a meeting with the county commission. So they asked if we could bump them down on the agenda.
Let's just bump that for a minute. We'll move down to the next item then. Move to our active agenda. Denise, has anybody contacted you for public comments?
No, I haven't received any.
Okay, we'll move down to item 5 then, which is a resolution for James and Lisa. Does the council feel like you're ready to move on that, or do you want to wait for the presentation from James and Anissa?
Mayor, I would say that we probably ought to have an opportunity to hear from James and Anissa before we take a motion on that resolution.
Let's hold that till they can join us, then we'll move to item number six then. Kale, you ready to shine? Okay, item number 6 is resolution 2106, approval of municipal wastewater planning program annual report 2020. Tyler, let me have you introduce this report, introduce what the new hat Kale has and what this report actually is. So Ty, if you'd introduce that for us, please.
Sure. So Kale Watkins is our new supervisor over the sewer system. This is an annual report that he submitted, so you can see that he's filled it out and signed it. And this is just a chance for council to have the awareness and approve that report that he's put together. So I'll let Kel, if you want to give a specific overview or any of the high points, and then we can take questions from the council.
Got a lot of it was good for me to go over just because it helped me learn a lot of what I'm trying to learn and figure everything out. The biggest overall point of it was just to make sure we're thinking ahead and we're prepared for what's going on. And obviously with the sewer, sometimes it blindsides us, but we're definitely on track. One of the things is what are we doing to update the system right now? We've got the air diffusers going in that everybody's working on right now and going through the engineering it's already through the engineering process, but we're just going through all the paperwork to get them started. From then it's basically just looked over our overall system, the collection system, and just to make sure we're at capacity and we've got room to grow. Pipe wise, everything right now, the way the developments are, we're good everywhere. So, I mean, it was pretty cut dry. There's nothing big on there per se. Everything's looking good. I mean, we know if we have to get pushed into making a bigger treatment plant, that's going to be a struggle, but we're hoping we're making the right steps to keep our lagoon facility and our headworks facility working for as long as we can so that we can save as much money as we can for when that does hit.
Well, while the council's looking through that and come up with their questions, Kel, maybe help us fill us in on the progress or where we're at with the air diffusers. Maybe a timeline when you think they'll start actually putting those in, time when it's finished. Give us an idea what you think they'll do for us.
So with those, I mean, I'm guessing they probably won't start breaking ground on it till April. I'm guessing when it starts. I mean, obviously we're on thawing right now, but I'm guessing it'll take that long to get going. Once they get going, I've never seen them done. But I'm guessing all it is because once we get those blower motors in the headworks and get power to them, which all the power's there, all we got to do is dig a trench down there and run the plumbing and set the pipes out in the ponds with weights to hold them in place. So, I mean, it should go fairly fast. With that, once we get those in, the diffusers, they'll sit below surface. The aerators we're running right now are a surface aerator, so it doesn't mix the oxygen into the water as well. So it doesn't feed the good bacteria bugs that break down all the sludge and the solids that are suspended in the water. So once we get that better air, our bugs will be more active. They'll be able to break down the solids and everything down a bit better so that our numbers get better and keep our lagoons healthier for longer so that we can hit our numbers that the state requires so that we can keep our lagoon system.
So you're telling me that biology lesson I taught you 30 years ago is true? Everything needs oxygen?
Yeah, I didn't think
even bugs in the water?
Yep, I thought I just had to take the test and pass, and I never had to think about it again.
But you had a hand there, Ray. That's why he's where he's at.
No. Any questions? Question you might have on this report, or questions of Kel and what he's doing down there?
Mayor, I have a couple.
Go ahead, T.
My page isn't numbered, so I don't know to tell you which page it's on. And this is, I guess, a question for Ty as well as Kel. It says, they're kind of tied together. It says, has a repair replacement sinking fund been established for the sewer system? That was marked no. Is the repair and replacement sinking fund sufficient to meet anticipated needs? Again, that's marked no. Down in the next section, has a capital improvements reserve fund been established to provide for anticipated capital improvement projects? Again, that's marked no. I guess as I look at that, I guess my question is where would you need to be to mark that yes?
So yeah, that's a good point. What we're doing right now is funding. We are healthy in our current fund balance, so we're funding the projects out of our annual operational budget, but we don't have a set aside for the long term, right? So as you fund appreciation, then you put it aside, and the idea there is that you can just do replacement or other upgrades with the cash on hand. We haven't, as a city, gone down that road. I'm not exactly sure what the target number would be, but on an annual basis, as much as you can set aside, we would do that. But the challenge is you know, as well as the rest of the council, that our sewer rate is pretty maxed out just to cover what we've covered. So there's a plus and a minus to it. You can still have a healthy fund. You just have to anticipate bonding for future major projects. So if you can plan for those or get some grant money, that's kind of our strategy or where we're at. But just to be kind of where we're at after having the whole system, you know, when I started a couple years ago, we had a moratorium on growth. So we've recovered from that. We've got, you know, we're kind of halfway there, but you would have to have kind of the path we're on over long term before you could start really setting money aside. So we're kind of playing catch up, and that's just kind of where we're at. I don't know if that even answers your question, but
Yeah, it's just, I just was wondering, is there, you know, what that number would be? And, you know, and I realized that we're just really almost maxed out on our rate on our sewer enterprise fund. So,
yeah, so some of that is kind of indicative of the way that we do planning and zoning. So it's more connections per mile of pipe, and then the throughput at the treatment facility. So, you know, the more spread out you are and the number of connections you have trying to replace the large system is part of that. It's not just necessarily the rate and then the age of the system, but it just hasn't been. It's common for a lot of cities that in the past, you know, we've all focused on keeping rates as low as we can, but really haven't budgetarily been planning for replacement costs. So most cities haven't developed that strategy to fund appreciation as part of their operational budget.
and I guess that's my point. I mean, you know, but what else can we do? I mean, you know, our rate structure is, you know, quite high already. So, you know, it's a little frustrating, I guess, to look at that, because I don't know what else you could do.
Yeah, you just do the best you can and make sure that we're in pace. And I think that with our rates, we're in a good spot now. If your rate isn't adequate and you add people to it, it just gets worse, perpetually worse. If your current rate does cover your operational and replacement costs and you add people to it, then that's a little better. And so where we really don't have the option of growing or not growing, we're going to grow. It's just being responsible with the rate that we have in place. And then, you know, eventually you do get to the point where you can set some aside. The other thing is operationally, I think we've done a really good job. We've got a department of one, and with our fleet management, our internal service fund has really helped save all of the funds some money on replacing vehicles, so that those larger purchases are going to end up in the sewer instead of in operational costs. We'll be able to, I think, over time, really get our feet under us. So,
But Ty, if we're close to our maximum on our assessment that we charge, wouldn't that slow down our ability to bond?
It actually enhances the ability to bond.
Yeah,
They look at your rate, and they compare your rate to where it could be or should be. That's one criteria that at least the state uses in their funding.
So
Seems to me if you
there's
borrow
no
money, you
max.
have-
So there's no max on, when we say we're just at a high end, right? But there's no magic cap on how much you charge for sewer. It's just the cost of the system. And so I can see where you're coming from, because if you're bonding, you say, well, you've already maxed out your rate, so therefore you can't bond more. And that's not the situation. They want to make sure that we're responsible with our rate, and the bond payment can be included in our annual operating costs without actually raising the rate, if we're on the path that we're on.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you.
Or maybe you should tell me if that makes sense, since you're the bank guy.
Yeah, I think to go any deeper, you'd probably start looking at numbers. We don't want to do that.
I don't know. The bond market's pretty good right now.
There you go. Where's our new system?
Further questions?
Yeah, we've got a couple just at the end of part one. Do we, since we've marked no, we don't have a customer assistance program. I probably know the answer, but why wouldn't we have one? That'd be.
Gail, can you help me on that one? I'm not exactly sure what that refers to.
Didn't we actually attempt that once upon a time, Mayor? Where you could donate to a fund to help?
Yeah, help correct me, Cal, if I'm wrong. What I believe that refers to, David, is if you have a fund set up for a situation where someone can't pay their sewer bill. And if someone can't pay their bill, then what do we do about that? Do we just let that bill go in the red? And do we take that as a bill that can't be collected? Or do we have a fund set aside to help pay for those that can't pay their sewer bill? That's what that refers to.
Probably what it is.
Their utilities. If somebody can't pay their power bill and water bill, what do we do with that? At one point, we had a small fund set up, and it ran for, I can't remember, 2 or 3 years. We never didn't need it. So we didn't see the need at that point to increase that or make that any bigger. If we run into a situation where we had some folks that couldn't pay their bill, then we as a council need to address that, how we're going to deal with that. If we need to create a fund from somewhere to help take care of those situations. At this point, we haven't had that happen. Is that correct, Cale?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Now, yeah, and I was expecting that to be the answer. There just isn't a demand or a need at this point.
It hasn't been.
Yeah.
The other thing I would look at too is making sure it's not a duplication of services. So sometimes the administrative costs of a small fund like that, where other assistant programs already exist that can be brokered, based on someone's financial situation. It's kind of a hard position for the city to review somebody's financial situation and validate that they're in need or not, when there's programs that do a much better job at that than us. So
yeah, they're set up to do it. Okay. Over to part 5, projected capital investment costs. We tried to project out, it looks like a cost for the 2021 through 2025 and so forth, but 2021 was 200,000, 21 to 25 for a 5-year period was 150. But then 26 through 30 goes up to 2.5 million, and then another 2.5 for the next period. Why the big increase there? What are we projecting?
So with that, it's only if our ponds don't stay healthy and we have to move to a mechanical plant. So that would be into our phase 2 of our mechanical plant. So we're hoping we don't get to that, but I mean, eventually it's probably going to come. It's kind of inevitable there.
Yeah, so we said 2025. Would it be that soon?
I hope not.
Yeah.
Is that what I wrote down on there?
No.
Yeah, you got 2025 through 2030, you got 2.5 million.
Yeah, no, I was thinking more towards the 2030 at the earliest is what I'm
But
hoping.
but starting in that window,
That
it's
window.
likely some point
and the
beyond
state-
2025.
The state redoes our permit every 5 years too, so that's kind of why I put that there too. So in 5 years, they could change the numbers to where it's almost impossible to reach them if they wanted, but
Mhm.
they were actually pretty good to us on this last permit to where they they raised the bar a little, or not, I don't know how you'd say it, but my number counts can be a little higher than we projected them to be for the next 5 years.
So any concern, I mean, is there anything we need to be doing now to look towards that or prepare for it? The mechanical arrangement, or do you just wait until you get the word? I mean,
Well,
I think
that's
that's what
like
the
why
extra-
we're putting the air
that's what-
diffusers in and everything is
Yeah.
to prolong it out as long as we can, so that we can get our funds get ourselves situated the best we can.
So
I think
that's kind of the path we're on, and why we did the headworks and the disinfection, because it works in concert with the lagoon system. And to go full mechanical isn't to do away with all of that. It's simply to replace the lagoon cells with a mechanical cell in using the existing investments that we've made. And so it's just we're just buying time. But like this year's diffuser system, we're funding that out of 1 year's normal operational expense. So I think we're doing the best we can as we go. So,
So Ty, if your sewer rate reaches a point where it's hit a certain target, I think I heard once upon a time it was $73, or I don't recall, something like that. And then we had to do mechanical, and we was looking at a $10 million mechanical or whatever. And we're at that targeted rate. Would it be wise to think that perhaps at that point you would be eligible for some sort of grants or some help from the state or the federal government in building that mechanical plant? Is that fair to say?
yeah, that's correct. So if you've done everything that you can, and you're charging the rate up to the adjustable income, the average income or median income, then that's the tipping point when you do become eligible for grants. So it doesn't guarantee a grant, but we're right on that line and that threshold that we would, instead of being required to bond for the next step, that we would be eligible for some grant money.
So anyway, back to the projected capital improvement costs. I think what Kale is saying there is be ready to bond, Ty. I've just got one last question. I think it's maybe just a comment on the very last page. I think it's the last page. It says, what date was this adopted? And it says 2/9/2021. Kale, you must have a cool crystal ball there. I may need to use it sometime.
That isn't when it says it was adopted. Wasn't it adopted? And there was another page there. That's when you guys were going to review it.
Well, it just says, what date was this? Has this been adopted by the council? I think it's talking about the report.
Oh, it says, or
Yeah,
put in the future date is what it
If
says.
no, if no, what date will it be presented to the council? And then
Yeah.
it says, what date was this adopted? 2/9/21.
Oh, well.
You're awesome, man.
We have an optimistic staff
It's Denise.
and a very supportive council. So
There we go.
That wasn't us speaking for you. That was just a
Oh, all right.
vote of confidence.
Yeah. Yeah. Giving Kale a bad time there.
Let's work.
That's all. Yeah, that's all I have. Thank you.
Tony, you have something else?
No, I was just gonna say, in order for that to come to pass, I would simply make a motion that we adopt resolution 21, approval of the municipal wastewater planning program annual report of 2020.
I'll
second it.
Well,
Oh, Dave got it.
either way, I was just going to second it to keep Kale out of trouble.
Okay.
Thank you.
Motion by Tony, second by David and Eric. That we
Okay.
pass resolution 2106, approval of the municipal wastewater plan program and report 2020. Any further discussion on the motion? Okay, see now, please vote. This resolution will go by roll call vote. David,
Aye.
Tony,
Aye.
Jeffrey,
Aye.
Jeff,
Aye.
and Eric.
Aye.
Okay. We have 5 all in favor, so motion passed. And like, couple of quick items from my perception. The date this needs to be submitted by is April 15th. So I want to congratulate Kale and Ty for putting this together. This is the first time Kale's done it. I compare it to other years. It's done very, very well. And I think Kale and Ty together put this together. And I appreciate that. I appreciate being in advance. It's well before the April 15th deadline. So thanks for our staff for being astute and aware and putting documents together for the state before they do. I appreciate that very much. So thanks, Kale. Thanks, Ty, for that.
Yes, thank you.
Anything else on that one? Okay.
Ray, I've got one more, I guess, comment looking forward as we look at this. It says we've had 41 new sewer connections added this last year.
Yeah.
Is that a typical year for us? Because I think we're going to have more this coming year. Can we sustain a 40-year, a 60-year, an 80-year for the next 5 years and still be okay?
Yes.
Kale, what's your thoughts on that, Kale?
It was so I looked at last year and the year before. I can't remember the numbers on the year before, but in 2019, I think we only had 21 connections added on. So I mean, they did double, and I do agree with you. I think they're going to go up. But just with the 41 new connections, it didn't increase our flow. It was, I want to say, less than 10% of the flow increase. Like I was somewhere around 8%, I think, when I looked at it. So I mean, and we're still only at like 25% of our capacity. So I mean, yes, we will sustain it for quite a few years. When you go mechanical, it'll jump a ton more than that too. So I do think we'll be able to sustain for quite a few years.
Okay, good. Because, yeah, that's something that we need to just kind of pay attention that all of our infrastructure can keep up with the growth that people are wanting to move to our valley. And the secret's out. People want to come here.
Yep.
And we need to make sure we're protecting those that are here and are ready for those coming in. So, all right, that's just one question I had.
Yep.
I appreciate that question, Jeffrey. And part of what we're looking at is Kale and Ty potentially could give us a quarter or every 6 month report and take a look at the various pieces of the sewer lagoons and the capacity is still left there. I think that's an excellent question, something we need to be aware of, need to be watching towards. And so you know that in the sewer business that Kale's part of, there are several pieces they look at, oxygen and the various other pieces, TSS and some of those others. So I appropriate possibly in 6 months or a quarter, Kale will come back and tell us kind of what the current lagoon is doing. If the area is making an effect on, if it's more positive, and give us a report on those kinds of things. Yeah, we asked you with that in mind, are we be able to keep up with the current expected growth? So thank you, Jeffrey, for that. Is that okay, Kale?
Yep.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Good, good. Anything else on that one? Ty?
I'd also just mention there are different capacities in our pipes. And so there's certain areas in town that actually need more connections just to flow, because we spend money trying to flush the lines because of the lack of users. And so it's just a balancing act. It's not all just the lagoon system. It's our pipes, and you know, if we have to upgrade certain areas because the growth is concentrated where the size of a pipe isn't adequate, that's a different story. So we can continue to have people grow as long as they're not football fans and they don't all want to flush at halftime at the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything
Right
else?
on.
No, sir. All right. We'll move this to city reports and reports. First off, let Ty start with the manager reports, and then I'll move to the council. If you have any questions or any reports you'd like to make, we may ask, if we dare, we may ask Gary for a report on legislature. Okay, Ty?
So we had I got an email, well, a couple of us got an email from a citizen that was in the cemetery and had quite a few dog droppings. I don't know what the appropriate term is for that, but poop. So dog poop in the cemeteries, and it didn't have a sign. And then I know we've talked about it before as a council, but I couldn't remember. It must have been right after I had first started. We had a problem, and our Parks and Cemetery supervisor has talked to a couple people and curbed the problem in our South Cemetery, but the North Cemetery has just had a lot of that in the problem. So anyway, the question is, are we comfortable with the ordinance that we have that says no dogs are allowed, and would you like us to enforce that, or would you like to consider working on that ordinance? I do have a thought or a proposal that might work, but it's kind of up to the council on the direction we go, so we can not have this become a continual problem.
I think I was the one that brought it to city council 2 or 3 or 4 years ago. I had the same complaints for some people about, walking dogs in the cemetery. We did put a sign up as you entered the South Morgan Cemetery. There is a sign. I'm a little frustrated with it because for me, it's pointless if we're not going to enforce it. We just as well put a neon sign up there that says, please walk your dog here. So if it's not going to be enforced, and I don't mean, kind of reactive. I mean, if we're going to enforce it, we probably need to be a little bit more proactive on it. So that's my 2 cents worth.
That's what I couldn't remember is I couldn't remember the sense from the council. I remember we decided, well, just see how it goes, but I don't remember having a strong action that we needed to be real hard on not allowing any dogs. So I guess that's my question. And I guess my thought was, are the dogs the problem, or is it the poop? So if we want to allow dogs on a leash, but have a stiff penalty for people that don't clean up after their dogs, or would you rather not see dogs at all in the cemeteries? We have a lot of people that walk in the cemeteries, make laps and whatnot. So I guess that's the direction it's not an agenda item, but just the general sense of how the council feels. And if the answer is just to not allow dogs, I can get signs put up again and have our guys really patrol that.
I'm good with that. Ty?
You're okay with that approach?
What, Ty, what's involved in enforcement? How would it be enforced?
We just have to put the signs and then have somebody go out and tell people that they need to leave. You know, that dogs aren't allowed in the cemeteries. And the tricky business is it's usually just after hours. We can engage with the police department to help us out with that if we need to. So
is that something that citations issued?
it's just I think it's just under code enforcement. So we would give them a written warning, and then follow that process. If they don't comply or there's a second offense, then I think we would just do the $50 and then the $100. And so just a chance for them to curb the behavior, you know.
A couple of comments. I know there's a lot of people that walk to the M, and they'll walk up the cemetery roadway, you know, to get to the gate to go to the M. And of course, they'll have their dog with them. And I don't know, you know, that's an issue. I don't think dogs are the problem. I just think that people that have dogs in the cemetery just really need to be responsible and take care of them. So I mean, I really don't have an issue with dogs in the cemetery. It's just that they just need to be responsible and take care of them.
So I guess what I heard Ty asking for, and as a council, we need to weigh in on the gamut from no dogs, period, all the way where we're at now, any dog run, whatever, or there's something in between. If we have no dogs, we can do that. But the council, we need to decide that. The other realm would be on leashes only. And we talk about putting, you know, cameras up there, and we can enforce that. Part of Ty's question tonight is, as council, if you're ready to make a decision tonight, you can. If not, we can put it as an actual agenda item next meeting and think through it if you want to give some time to this. In the cemetery, I don't have a dog, so I don't know how to speak to this. I've never had one. That's not something I have, unless I have that scenario that I can speak from a background. But as far as people that walk dogs, is that something that we as a council want to hold our cemeteries to a standard where dogs should not be allowed, which is fine. If we say we want to do that, that's appropriate to say no dogs in the cemetery. Or do we want to try and say, yeah, you walk your dog as you're walking, if you have a leash, and don't let dogs roam, if you clean up after yourself. I think that's going to take a little more effort and enforcement than just none at all. So yeah, you think, Gary, you look like you were going to try and say something a minute ago. Have you got some thoughts on this for us? Then I'll turn time back to the council to give some thoughts or ideas. Either everybody needs to weigh in tonight on this one, or we can just ask if we put on the next agenda as an agenda item, to actually make a motion and decide on it. Gary, thoughts?
And so I think it's an all or nothing proposition, because if you don't, you know, it's tough to control the dogs if you allow them in the park. That's a tougher situation than if you just say no dogs allowed, and then you know that, or not in the park, but in the cemetery. Then when you see a dog, you know they're in violation of that. And whereas, you know, off leash, on leash, it's a really tough situation to enforce. And then the other thing is if you do allow them in, we've noticed that on the trails we allow dogs on, that you really have to put a receptacle in the bags and everything in there. And then that helps a lot, because then people don't have an excuse for not picking up after them, even though you still get people that don't. We found that a large percentage of them actually do use the bags if they're available. They just don't bring them with them. And so I think you're on the right track. And I think Ty's fine process would work in something like that. The tough thing is after hours, he's right. So
and we don't, if that's the case, we already have the ordinance that says no dogs allowed, so we don't need to bring that back. I just, before I go down the enforcement road, I wanted to get a sense from the council, because there probably will be some upset upset people, which is fine. And before we make the signs, we want to make sure this, the signs reflect that you're comfortable with what that ordinance already says. And so,
Now, I do have an idea. It came out of Alaska, and what they did was they went along and they put peanut butter on all the little droppings, and then the dogs would come along and eat the peanut butter. And
finish it off.
I'm just saying, you got to be.
Who spread the peanut butter?
Yeah.
Why did you say you wouldn't mind spreading peanut butter? Is that what you said?
Yeah. City manager does that work.
I think it was the city manager. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, I'd be doing that as code enforcement.
Yeah. Okay. Hey,
That's,
Jeff, Jeff commented that he's fine with us abiding by ordinance and not having dogs in the cemetery. Is that correct, Jeff?
That's correct.
Okay. Would the others like to, Eric, Jeffrey, Dave, Tony, what are your thoughts? You want to uphold the ordinance as is? No dogs, or do you want to do something different? Give Ty your input, please.
I'd like to just ask a question first, and that is, have we not had signage there? Ty, you talked about making signs. Have we not had signs to let people know, even though we have the ordinance?
yeah, so one does have a sign. People still bring their dogs, but it hasn't been a problem with the poop. The other one doesn't currently have a sign, and it has people walking their dogs, and it got away from us because we hadn't been mowing for a couple months and it hasn't been snowy. And so it was very apparent, and because we're not out mowing and trimming, it hasn't been cleaned up. So that's where the concern comes from. And we will have cameras in the park or in the cemeteries and the park, but I thought our sign could also just put a little notice that says this area is under surveillance or something along those lines, just so that they're, right by the either no dog sign or whatever we put up. So
Eric, Tony, Jeffrey, what are your thoughts?
I'll weigh in with my thoughts. My question was along the kind of like Dave's. I was thinking, well, first of all, I mean, obviously it's a problem because it's coming to us. My thought was, well, how big it really is the problem? Is it 1 or 2 people, or is it 10 or 12? That would make a difference. And then my thought was, I'd rather see us trying to somehow put some signage up or something to self-regulate this. I would hate the thoughts of somebody having to go up and try to enforce that, sending the cops up there they got more things to worry about than that. So the enforcement of it, I think, would be kind of the hard part of it. And I don't want to, like I say, I don't want to have to send somebody up after hours or weekends, or what do you do? So I think if we could get some signage up and kind of do some kind of email blitz or something saying, hey, your dogs are not welcome here at the cemetery. Better wordage than that, but something like that, and just see if we can self-regulate the problem before we're actually, making some kind of enforcement. I know maybe that's the middle of the road. That's kind of how I'm seeing it. That's about my thoughts. So
Let me clarify. I'm hearing you say we ought to still keep the ordinance, put up signage saying no dogs allowed.
correct.
Eric?
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
just do that. Put up some signage and see if it helps curb the problem.
No dogs allowed. Okay.
Yep.
And to Tony's point, well, go ahead. Jeffrey or Tony?
I have nothing more, Mayor.
Okay, Jeff, go ahead.
I'm good with no dogs.
Okay.
Is that what you're asking me, Mayor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeffrey, what are your thoughts?
I'm good with no dogs. The people that are going there for a reason, and I sure hate to have them step in dog manure. There's lots of places people can take their dogs for a walk around town.
I think we've heard from them, to Tony's point earlier, if we have an ordinance there, we need to be ready and willing to enforce if need be. I guess
Yeah,
I was
absolutely.
trying to say earlier. Okay,
Mayor, just,
Go ahead, T.
this is neither here nor there, but when this came up, I can't remember, it was 2 or 3 years ago, I think, when I
Right.
brought it to the council.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people, or I had a couple of people talk to me about it. But at that point, I got kind of curious, and I started to notice as I drove around to different cities and municipalities, I was curious what their, what their stance was on it. And I noticed most cemeteries, now again, this doesn't make it right or wrong for Morgan City, but I noticed most cemeteries do not allow dogs in the cemetery. So
Right. I think that's, Ty, that's a pretty clear message.
Yep,
Understand?
that helps.
All right, good enough. Okay. As Denise has helped us understand, we have our guest, Anissa and James, back to be able to join us. So we'd like to go back to item number 3 on your agenda if we can. And James and Anissa, if you want to unmute yourself, we'd like to turn time over to you for your presentation, and then we'll move to that point. So
Well,
James
thank you,
and
Mayor.
Anissa, go ahead.
Well, thank you. I think I'll just start on the economic development side, and then Anissa can jump in and talk about tourism and some outdoor recreation opportunities. We kind of work hand in hand, but she's much more well-versed in the other area than I am, so I'm going to let her kind of cover that. From our perspective, we are excited with the opportunity to work with Morgan City on economic development and better understanding where the community wants to go and how we can help and assist businesses or the county in building out amenities. And so we'll need to spend some time with the county, with the city council and with Ty and the mayor, making sure that we're building it out in a direction that you're comfortable with. And then we love the opportunity then to become kind of a liaison between, multiple groups within Morgan County, and whether it's the chamber or the COG or Morgan City or Morgan County, we feel creating some better communication and consistency and continuity is one of the areas we're really going to be focused on. So I hate to kind of give you a strategic plan for Morgan City or how the connectivity between Morgan County's strategic economic development plan, because we haven't spent enough time kind of sitting down with the community leaders, but want you to know that we're committed to taking the direction that Morgan City wants to continue in and helping to provide a structure or a foundation to build that out. I don't know if that makes sense, or I don't even know if you heard me because I never asked if you could.
Yes, we can hear you. You're on. You're good that way.
Okay. We've started a little bit at Morgan City, just so that you know, working with several business owners on helping them find grants. We've written a couple of grant letters of support, working with the chamber. Many of your chamber members are business owners within Morgan City. And we've started a little bit of conversation on some opportunities to do some amenity build out and how that would affect Morgan City, and maybe starting in Morgan City on some of those projects with Ty and how we can help find funding. So as far as economic development, I think that's probably where I'll leave it and be open to questions. And if Anissa wants to kind of cover some of the other areas that I've missed, I invite her to.
Any questions from the council to Mr. Ebert?
James, help me understand, talk about working with Morgan City. I guess I maybe missed it somewhere, but what is our relationship? Are we contracted to work together? Are you part of a state arrangement or a county program?
You bet. And I'll try to keep it short, but if you've met me before, sometimes I don't. So somebody put me on a buzzer. But about 2 years ago, the state kind of changed their focus of rural economic development away from this grant-based multiple programs to more of a one set amount for the county that allows the county to have more control of the dollars. And so we were initially contracted with the county to provide economic development support. And as we started really reaching out to businesses and talking to citizens, we felt like there was kind of a divide between different groups within the county. And that doesn't make sense because economic development for the community involves all of the community. And so we've really had conversations with the commission on how we can be a support to the city, we can be a support to the COG, we can be a support to the chamber, we can build out tourism opportunities and what that looks like and how we can capture those dollars. And so the county, as you know, the county entity has contracted with us, but under our kind of purview and under our scope, we really want to work with all entities with the county because, you know, we feel strongly that the tide lifts all boats and we don't want to leave anybody behind. And the success is more synergetic than it is a siloed. And so that's kind of where we kind of landed working with Ty a little bit and have some great conversations with the mayor and hopefully into the city council. That's the connection.
Okay, yeah, that's helpful. Thank you. How long are you contracted with the county?
So we have a contract until July, the 1st of July, but we just had a great discussion with the county commission, and that's why we're running a little bit behind about entering into a more robust contract and extending that contract out to a more, you know, viable economic development strategic plan implementation. So we hope in our next county commission meeting to kind of line that out to have more of a long-term commitment, and we feel confident that that will move forward.
Great, thank you.
Other questions from the council on Mr. Ebert? Okay. And James, you turn time over to Anissa then, or?
Yes, Anissa, would you like to cover some of the other areas? She's driving, so I'm not sure if
it
she.
It wouldn't let me unmute. So yes, everything that James says is a unanimous from both sides. I just have a different background, and so I'm bringing in the experience of tourism and hospitality, and the role that plays in economic development. I think the reason why we're on your agenda this evening is to bring back the EIS study and the support. I know that in the previous meeting, you wanted to wait until the commission supported it before we presented it again to you. So I think that that's one of the items that we wanted to discuss tonight.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you.
If I could add really quick for tourism and outdoor recreation, one of the directions and focuses we've been asked and tasked with is creating a more diversified economy. And I think there's opportunity in tourism and outdoor recreation to kind of accomplish that. And it's a big focus of the state right now. And there are amazing opportunities. Some folks may not be aware of what all those opportunities are, but it does help to diversify your economy as a whole and capture some opportunity loss that you have not in the past. And so we would love at maybe a later date to have, you know, a more robust discussion on what that looks like and better explain it to you. But I think that there's a tremendous value. Hey, Anissa, exit 96, you have to get off and get back on. So don't bust through all the cops right there. Just FYI. We're in our car.
Too late. I already busted through it.
Okay. And so again, there's tremendous value in how we've kind of structured our outreach to the county. And I think there's tremendous value also with the hotel and being able to capture some of that opportunity in tourism and outdoor recreation. That's all. Any more questions?
Other questions from the council?
So when we met last meeting, considering the resolution that we're going to look at tonight, there was a little bit of concern that maybe Morgan City didn't want to be the first to move forward with that. And you were going to do some work with the county and the COG there and so forth. Any report on that?
Yeah, you bet. So a really quick little report from the COG. We had a great discussion in the COG, and the COG was exactly where Morgan City Council was. And there was a feeling of support for it, understanding that, you know, building out a community in a county is just not taking care of yourself or only looking how it affects you, but looking how it affects the whole. And then really wanting that commitment from the county commissioners, which I
We lost you, James. Can't hear you. Till James comes back in, let me answer that. And, last Tuesday evening, the county council met in the regular county council meeting, and that was on their agenda. And they did vote unanimously to support the resolution. That's the same one we have on our agendas tonight. So the county council did pass that last Tuesday night, and it was a unanimous vote to pass and support that resolution.
Okay, thank
So
you.
that did take place.
Great.
Sorry, I lost you.
Yeah, we lost you.
So in a nutshell, we just reaffirmed that support unanimously from the commission tonight, and their commitment to really start focusing in on the Mountain Green interchange and the Mountain Green Town Center. And they would appreciate any support that the city or the COG eventually would have for that.
Thank you.
Further questions from the council? Okay.
Is there
I
been
think I encourage you, Mayor, that at least the commissioners are all seeming to be on the same page for this one thing. That's encouraging for Morgan.
Yes, I feel like we gave them tonight a very substantive economic development plan, the deliverables we're looking at, the commitment to work with all entities within the county. We talked about the support that Morgan City has expressed through the last meeting we had with the city council and then the mayor and then Ty. And I think they were very appreciative of that, to be honest with you, and they want to have a positive working relationship. And so I feel like there's an opportunity to start positive movement towards a little more collaboration. And I don't know if Anissa wants to chime in on here, but I just feel like there's a different feel from the commission perspective.
Further comments from the council? Okay. Gary, you have anything you'd like to add, Gary, at this point? Okay, all right. At least give my impression, and we'll maybe move to the resolution. We'll move to item number 5, which is a resolution. My discussion, and as I said in that meeting last Tuesday night, in discussion with a couple of council members since then, one aspect I got from those, they were appreciative that we as a COG and city council let them proceed and go forth. James and Nisa also helped to use that dialogue, that verbiage to the county council as well. So I think that was a positive thing to let the county council go first with that proposal. At this point, I believe that, like we said last time, the best thing for this community would be for the county council and COG, Chamber of Commerce, and City Council to become on the same page on lots of projects. Now, does that mean we agree on everything? No, it doesn't. But can we start with some support of a current project? I think that's a huge piece to start off with this new council. Well, that's why I guess I would likely consider the resolution 2105 is just to continue to show that support for this project. Now, does that mean that the city is going to go down and build the interchange? No. Does it mean the city, wants to have the town center happen and that mean not necessarily? But to me, it just means that we want to support the county council in their endeavors to proceed to get an EIS study and proceed along that path. There will be some things the county council will do that they will do on their own, don't need our support. There'll be other things that we do as a group that we need to support each other on. And so I don't see this as someone saying, yeah, everything the county council does, we're gonna rubber stamp. I see this as a first step towards cooperating with each other in making meaningful progress in our community. That's the way I see this one. Some of you may see that differently, but that's my take on this resolution before us tonight. And the path I think we've started on, which I think is a healthy one. Okay. That's my thoughts on it. So let's move down to number 5. Open that up for discussion or comments or a motion if you're ready.
Mayor, I move or make a motion that we accept or adopt resolution 21-05, resolution of support and encouragement of the state of Utah and the Department of Transportation to fund both the environmental impact study and the eventual construction of interchange on I-84 connecting Trappers Loop.
Second.
Right,
Beat me.
been moved in second. We pass resolution 2105. Support of the state of Utah and Department of Transportation to fund both the environmental study and eventual interchange on I-84 connecting Trappers Loop. Is there any discussion on that motion from the council?
Just, I guess, Mayor,
Go ahead,
I
Jeffrey,
had the
please.
opportunity last week to sit in on the COG meeting, and I know the school district are behind this for multiple safety reasons down in that area for school buses and everything else. So I think it's a good step for every aspect of the community to put our support behind the county council.
Any other thoughts from the council? Comments?
I was there as well at the COG meeting, and I thought that James and Anissa did a really good presentation. Yeah, and I do feel after that COG meeting the other night, there is a spirit of cooperation between the county councils and school board and city council. So I hope that's the case, but it certainly felt like it that night. So wanted to add that.
Thank you. Any other questions or input or thoughts? Okay, if not, we'll proceed to vote. Again, this is a resolution. Let's go roll call vote. Eric.
Aye.
Jeff.
Aye.
Jeffrey.
Aye.
Tony.
Aye.
And David.
Aye.
Okay, we have 5A, so motion passed unanimously. Therefore, resolution 2105 has been adopted by the city council. So James and Anissa, thank you for being here. Thank you. Drive safe, and we'll talk with you another day. You're welcome to stay if you want, but don't feel obligated to do so.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Okay, Ty, will turn time back over to you to finish up on your manager report.
Okay, the next one on the agenda is the transfer station. So last year we went from 2 vouchers to 1 free voucher per account. I've talked to the county. We didn't have a formal meeting about it, but we're already into February, and same thing, just because we're not changing anything, just make sure there's no concerns with just staying the course that we set last year. It's was really helping our account, our revenue. I think we've adopted a really good policy down there. They're still managing it really well, and until the windstorm, everything was doing awesome. But we will try and seek reimbursement for all the added expense down there after the windstorm. But anyway, so that's kind of where we're at. Unless there's any strong feelings that that's the path we're on. Just
thumbs up. Okay with a one-time voucher for.
Well, that sounds great. Let's keep moving forward. Thanks, Ty.
How many people got a voucher, Denise, last year? Do you know?
I don't know, but
Yeah.
I'll find out, Tony, and send you an email.
I know it wasn't everybody, but a big portion did. I don't know how many either. Yeah, good question. Don't know.
yeah, I recall like 1,000 something, just over 1,000, like 1,028 or something. I don't know why that comes to mind, and I could be off, but I didn't evaluate it at the end of the 2020. That was like the count last time I looked at it for a year or so.
Any other input on that? Okay, Ty.
Okay, just a couple of informative items. We just started a new phone system on Monday. So if you get any complaints or people that said their call was dropped or they left a message and nobody returned their call or something along those lines, we're trying. The phone system's a lot better than our last one. It's capable, has a lot of capabilities. It's just up to us to adapt and kind of learn how it goes. Like they don't use the term phone tree for how the calls roll over. It's called call queue, and just little nuanced stuff like that as we set it up. So we're working on it. Denise is our expert.
Hey, go ahead, Denise.
Well, I just wanted to let the council know you probably all got an invite to join a team, because I was setting up a group for the mayor and council. So just ignore that. Just delete those little messages that came from the phone system.
I thought you were inviting us to dinner.
Oh, it's
man.
going to be a big learning process, but it'll be good.
All right.
So, anything else? Okay. Our council room is going to be finished tomorrow, and then we'll schedule a training on it. So same thing. It's going to be really nice and capable. We'll be able to use it as a conference room, and the council chambers has a really nice recording system that'll help Denise out a lot. I think, Denise, is that still used cassette tapes?
No, it was CDs,
Oh, okay. Well, that's,
but we don't have the capability of burning a CD if anybody requests a copy of a recording. So it's, this will record them in MP4s, I think they said. So it'll be nice.
yeah, and we'll be able to bookmark the agenda. So as you get to different places in the agenda, you can have the video. If you ever go back and watch one, you can just go right to that agenda item by chapters. And so that'll be nice.
And you'll each have a monitor. So Tony, you won't need your glasses.
Oh, good.
So anyway, we look forward to having that done. And then, so the hotel is having a ribbon cutting ceremony February 29th. They don't have the time. That's coming kind of from corporate. I've talked to Scott Parkinson. He's the managing owner of the new investor group, and he'd like to have a different one with the community. So that's like the first day of spring break, and the chamber was really hoping to get behind the hotel and really involve more of our business community, and the timing didn't work out. So they're going to have a ribbon cutting ceremony, which will be a pretty formal thing. And then at a different date, we'll have an open house where the chamber can get involved and get a little bit more exposure to the hotel from our chamber members in the business community. So I don't have a date for that yet. We just barely talked about that this afternoon. So
What day did you say?
February 29th.
That doesn't exist this year.
That's Denise's birthday. So 26th, is that a Monday?
No, 26th is Friday.
Oh, March. It's March. Is March
March has the 29th.
29th, is that spring break? So I'm dyslexic, so I really did think I flipped the 6 and the 9, but if I just messed up the month, that's an easy fix.
I do believe that that's the week of spring break.
March 29th, is it a Monday?
It's a Monday.
Okay, let's go with that. I'll let the hotel know. It's been announced now.
Yeah, they have to do it then.
Tell them February.
You're not terribly dyslexic, or you would have said what, March 92?
Yep. And I wasn't even reading anything. That was me just speaking. That's terrible. So I think that's all I have for updates.
Okay. Anything from the council, questions or input or items that you'd like to bring forth from the council? David.
I'd maybe just like to hear from Gary. Is that
right? We'll let the council let Gary have the last word. Tony, anything from you? Questions, thoughts?
No, I don't think so.
Jeffrey.
No, I'm good, Mayor. Thanks.
Okay. Eric.
Nope, I don't have anything.
Okay, and Jeff.
No.
Okay, all right, thank you. Gary, do you dare tell us anything about the legislative session?
Just that it's very, very different. Are you sure you want to give me the last word?
Yeah.
Nobody's ever done that before. Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate
Well,
it.
your wife always does.
No, 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 no. I know better. By the way, Dave, I did respond to your question. I looked it up and it's in the chat on the MD zone. So the original question that you asked.
Yes.
So this is a fun year. This is really a fun year. I don't think I've ever seen a year where they've used a bigger bat on local government than this year.
Yeah.
They just it's just one thing after another, and every single piece of legislation that seems to come out pertaining to local governments attempts to take some power that local governments or authority that local governments have away from them. And so I'd like to get just kind of a consensus from this group. If there was a law that indicated that ADUs or auxiliary dwelling units within a structure had to be allowed in every single family zone, would you or would you not be in favor of that? Now there would also be a provision that would not require any special building permit or permits or business licenses or anything else, and they would not be Airbnb. They would be over 30 days. How would you feel in Morgan? How would that go over in Morgan for the state to mandate that in every single family zone? Would that be a up or down?
Yeah, I think it'd
be down everywhere and say nobody will want it. But what it means is in your backyard, David, you can have somebody put a house in your backyard. Tony, you can put one in your backyard too. You put a house in your backyard, put them on your grass, have somebody drive down inside your house to get to their house.
So far it's just interior, Mayor, just inside the home. And the owner of the house has to be present. In other words, you have to have the owner. And if you have an owner in the house, it's owner occupied, you can rent out your basement.
So just rent at this point. Okay, I missed that. Sorry. Okay.
Renting the basement. No 2 units on the site. We were able to just have it within the building. And then, yeah. How many of you have second units in buildings around your home already that you know about? Where people are renting out the basement to a relative or to an uncle or to an aunt or to grandma's downstairs or.
I think it maybe isn't terribly uncommon for a basement to be finished as and you hear it referred to as a mother-in-law apartment, but typically related to family. Very rarely in my neighborhood would we hear of units being rented out. I don't even know that it's legal.
It's not legal.
So it's not legal currently in Morgan, and it's not legal in Layton, but the bill that is up there this year at the legislature that is coming from 3 different legislators and supported heavily by leadership in both houses as a possible solution to the affordable housing, at least a partial solution to the affordable housing issue, is to mandate in every city in the state that they allow for ADUs if it's owner occupied and if it's within the boundaries of the house, allowing only the cities to ask for only 1 additional parking space for that. And that's actually been the biggest complaint, because most of the times you never know that these things are in your neighborhood, but the biggest complaint has been parking. And I just want to get a sense of how you'd feel, but it looks like that's fast tracked. They're looking for solutions to affordable housing, and that's one of them that they're looking at carefully.
So Gary, one of the problems with that on a new build is how do you prevent a duplex?
Yeah, because they have to.
You design it with a basement entrance or side by side, and you say, I'm the primary resident, and the other side, I'm just going to rent out, so it sounds like a simple thing, but then it's just a matter of definition. And then why you do zoning in the beginning just doesn't make any sense.
Well, and and it would be a duplex, and enforcement is the problem. How do you enforce, how do you know when somebody has moved out who is no longer the owner? And now you've got 2 units that are being rented out and they're by an absentee owner. And so there's all kinds of issues with it. But
And this is,
that's one piece of legislation that is coming from 3 different legislators, and the other 2 bills are worse than Representative Ward's bill. So
this is irregardless of sewer capacities and water demands and all of that. I mean, if you're flushing twice as many toilets, maybe it's time to bond, Ty.
so the argument is this, and it is that many people are growing older, they're maturing, and as they do, their children leave, which leaves usually space in the house that is not being used. And so that space could be used. That's the easiest space that could be used in the state of Utah for extended stay, people that are looking for homes, an extended stay. I was met with the military, or with the Air Force this morning, the colonel on the base, and their biggest problem on the base right now is extended stay facilities. They have not enough to, they can only service 50% of their current population. And that population is growing in the next year by 3,000. And so they are really, really concerned about the fact that there is no housing for their Air Force families. So this is the way the legislature, one of the ways the legislature this year is looking at addressing it is mandating ADUs in every zone, every single family zone in our cities. So that's one bill. Another one is this came out just the other day, and this bill, it really, if you take a look at it, is a developer's dream bill, because what it requires, one of the things it requires is that every building permit fee be tracked. And so you'd have to track the money coming in, who it came in from, which building it came in from, and then it has to be tracked on the other end is how is that every dollar spent. So I don't know how many, we had 41 building permits last year, Ty. So we'd have to.
We had over 100.
We had over 100. Okay, so we
had new builds, but we have a lot of building permits.
So we would have to track where that money comes from, and then we'd have to track where that money goes on the other side, penny for penny. And we would have to create an enterprise fund for each one of our fees, each one of our building permit fees, and each one of the fees.
So that just increases the fees. So that, I mean, mission accomplished. You just made it more expensive for the government to operate, which in turn will just cost you more. So congratulations, you solved nothing.
That's it. You're exactly right. Saratoga Springs last year processed 2,500 fees.
Wow.
You can imagine tracking 2,500 fees. It's going to cost more to track them than it is to collect them and pay them. Then the other problem with that bill is it requires every city to use what's called inclusionary zoning, which means that we must include within our requirements housing for developers or from developers that would provide for affordable housing. And they've got a formula for figuring that out based on 70% of MSI and you take 30% of that. So they look at the standard incomes in the mean in your community, and then they take 30% of that. And that's what they call an affordable house. And the developers have to build so many affordable units. You have to require them to do that. However, the catch is that you also have to pay for it. And the way you pay for it is you must give them increased density to the degree that they need in order to make up the difference in the loss of revenue for putting those affordable housings into your jurisdiction. So it's a city, we have to require affordable housing, but city, you also have to pay for it. You increase the densities. That bill just came out the other day. It's got another couple of really ugly pieces in it, but I thought I'd just share with you some of the joy that I feel when I go up there every day. It's just, it's tremendous. It really is. Billboards. There's a bad billboard bill that we've been working on, which allows them to light any billboard anywhere, anytime, in any circumstance. That one has been, we've been working on that to try and amend it to make it, what they're trying to do is trying to accomplish equity between some of these big signs that you see, like the Traverse Mountain and the Maverick Center and that type of thing. They're saying, these are private signs, they're not billboards, and yet you're allowing them to be lit, but not our billboards. And so Senator Sandel from Box Elder County is really, really trying to come up with an equitable solution to that. And then what does the billboard company do? Reagan Outdoor Advertising comes up with a second bill that says, if you even speak as city council people to any property owner about not having a billboard on their property, or if you ask how long is the lease on that billboard that you've got on that property, if you even ask those questions, then you will be responsible for a $375,000 fine, or the equivalent of the loss in revenue that you create by encouraging that property owner not to have a billboard on their property.
Holy smokes.
A little fine of 300. We were worried about dog poop, but what, $50 and $100?
Wow.
You guys would have to pull $375,000 out of your pocket just to pay for talking about a billboard, talking negatively about a billboard. That one's 144, Senate Bill 144. It is a real bill. We're actually talking about it tomorrow, and it was as a result of Salt Lake buying out a billboard lease before the billboard company got the opportunity to go buy and renew their lease. And so they're trying to get it changed at the state law level.
Sounds like an assignment for a city manager, so the elected officials don't have to deliver that message.
That's right. I think you'd rather put peanut butter on poop, but anyway. So I mean, those are just two. There's dozens. We've got almost 80. I think I told you, public safety bills. Some of them are really concerning. For example, a police officer has to show after the fact that it was necessary from an objective standard to use deadly force, or to use force which is just above the regular, putting the hands behind the back, that type of thing. And if any of you can imagine what it's like to be a police officer out there walking up to a car in the dark and then having to prove after the fact that it was necessary to pull your gun when you saw something come out of the side window and point at you, those instant moments when you have to make those decisions, to be judged afterwards as to whether or not it was necessary, the majority of people think that it was necessary, is a very, very tough standard. That increases the standard for use of force, and I think makes the streets a little less safe.
Mm-hmm.
Bicycles being able to go through red lights, that's back again, and we give up.
Let them have that one.
Let them have that one. You can have that. We're okay with that.
Yeah.
And then there is a bill also that is quite controversial between cities that allows for RDAs to collect the money directly from the school districts and the municipalities to collect the money directly and not have to go through the county to do their collections. And so that's very controversial. Salt Lake doesn't like it. Sandy does. They just say it's another tool. You don't have to use it, but you could. And so they're a little bit concerned about that.
So that one's the RDA would just set itself up as a taxing entity.
Right.
It would set its own rate based on what it currently collects. And then the idea is that it is a tool, but the reality is it's so that they don't have to work in a cooperative manner with the other entities and have school districts arbitrarily decide. So you got large school districts that set their own policies and their arbitrary caps without evaluating individual RDAs. So there are some RDAs that are really struggling because they're having different entities make those decisions for them. And here we have pretty good cooperation because we just have one school district, one county, one city. So it's been good so far for us. But
Some
Yeah.
cities or some school districts or cities don't even ask their school districts because they know the answer is no. As a matter of policy, it is.
Yeah.
Consider the project. So it's to allow RDAs to be able to collect that money outside of the yes of the school district, I guess. Anyway, that's just a little taste. More to come. I can give you the lowdown on 98-2, which is the building inspection bill, which started out pretty onerous, and that's probably the one I'm working hardest on right now. It involved a total preemption of the city's authority to be able to do plan reviews and inspections, and gives that authority entirely to the developer or builder. In other words, the developer and builder can have his own building inspector inspect the building, give a C of O, and let people move into the building without the city ever touching it, going out, looking at it, nothing. That bill also included a provision that prohibited cities from regulating any aspect of design, period. Whether it's a garage, how big the garage is, whether it's landscaping, whether it's roof pitch, whether it's the size of a building, the size of a home, or the parameters of a home, the outside parameters of a home. No design standards whatsoever. And
Wouldn't it just be easier to allow building officials to accept bribes? So if you're on the payroll of the person that you're inspecting, how well do you think that inspection is going to go if you want to stay employed?
exactly right.
It'd be a really tough inspection, Ty.
I'm just saying it would be cheaper because there's a lot of hungry building officials out there that would just take a little bit more to look the other way, right?
Yep.
I'm not saying they would. I'm just saying that's the environment that they're creating. It doesn't make any sense.
The actual,
You know, lenders and appraisers went down that road years ago, and they had to separate that. You're going to end up with the same problem.
that's
know,
Dave, you're right on the money.
Yeah,
That's
the appraiser said, what value do you need to the lender, and give me this if you want future work.
Well, there's one thing that's missing in that formula, and that is who protects the end buyer.
Sure.
Yeah,
In other words, you got your developer and contractor who build the building and move out of there. And then you've got no city inspection, you've got no third party oversight. And so who protects that third party or that buyer from what the builder and inspector have done?
What,
From a house that doesn't function, from a house that doesn't work. The other piece too is and for infrastructure, if there's no check on the sewer lines, water lines, compaction, roads and sidewalks, they'll all fall apart within a year or two. Then the city's got to replace all those.
Mhm.
And that's another piece too I see to it.
Yeah,
is infrastructure inspections.
right now it's just limited to building permits.
Just buildings, okay, okay.
The planning and zoning piece we're still allowed to keep, but still, if you think about some of the things, I can think about one instance up here in Layton where the engineer who's employed by the developer allowed for the footing for a post that actually held up an upper deck to be at a 45-degree angle. And his argument was, you know what, there's a concrete patio around the post down below. And so it really didn't need a footing and a foundation that would hold the post up straight because the patio would. But the problem is if the patio cracked,
Yeah.
The deck comes down.
Yeah.
But that was something he didn't consider to be important. And so he left it that way, and we made him dig it up and put a new one in. And that's the problem. That's the kind of corner cutting you're going to get in this situation. So that's one that I'm spending the majority of my time on right now, is to try and cut that back. And it's commercial. It started out commercial, multifamily, and residential. So can you imagine a commercial building being built by the builder, having his own inspector do it?
Skyscraper.
Begin to look at schools.
back to your lender and appraiser, you've got to watch those bankers. They're pretty shady characters.
Hey, they've already done it, Tony.
Sorry, Dave.
They took care of them. It's already been done.
Hey, Gary, what?
But
Gary,
this, bankers are against it.
Gary, what about the bill I was reading about today about the bill that's being floated around that on property tax at a certain age you can defer that property tax until the house is either sold or I guess turned over to your heirs, and then they have to recoup that lost property tax. Did I read that correctly?
That's correct. Yeah, that's the way that bill runs. It's called the Gary Crane Retirement Bill.
Tony London retired.
And I rather like it.
Yeah, yeah. Still got to be paid though.
Yeah, if it, you still need to collect property tax. That's the
Right.
problem. And if everybody doesn't pay their fair share, how do you predict a budget? Or our population is, most of us are getting older, and so how do you collect that? You got to wait till they die to collect. It doesn't make any sense.
Of course, the flip side of that is you don't want to get into a situation where your folks that's lived in your community forever can't afford to stay in their homes any longer for property taxes.
That's true as well, Tony. You're right. So there is a hardship clause though in the property tax. There is a relief clause in the property tax provisions of the state, where you can get relief from the property tax if you're unable to pay it and you're elderly.
Is that what they call the circuit breaker?
It is.
I was reading about that today as well.
Yeah, there is a circuit breaker. So it's kind of I think it's a good idea probably, but it will affect our taxes. So our tax revenues. That's
Gary, I had a chance to listen into the LPC meeting yesterday, and it just seems like land use is under siege across the nation. What's going on there?
It's really a function of supply not meeting the demand, and builders in this state and in other states that are like Utah, where we're building so fast we can't keep up with the demand for housing. Builders are getting more and more picky about when we take more time or too much time to approve a project, or we're not processing them fast enough for them. And then the other thing they're doing is they're complaining about the fees, the fact that the homes aren't affordable. When you get homes going up in value, the market value going up, you have to blame somebody for the fact that home is way, way out of reach of everybody, and the popular target is the government.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, if you think by decreasing our fees 20%, 30%, whatever you want to choose, that somebody's going to take 20 or 30% less on a home, what do you think the answer is?
No.
In a market like ours, it's just not going to happen. So it's a false premise that they've got, and that is that if you force government to reduce its fees, you're going to create more affordable housing. And then the other problem is government is holding up our creation of more housing. And if we had more housing, then it would be less expensive. And that's a false premise as well.
Mm-hmm. Do you think then, as economic situations change, supply and demand changes, that the pendulum can swing back the other way?
Well, I think they'll stop increasing in price, but
No, I mean this legislation regarding land use that's beating us up. Will that start to come back to reality and normal?
Yeah, I think it will.
Yeah,
I really do. If you take a look at the late 80s, when just take a look at 2007, when the bank loans stopped. Do you remember that?
exactly.
Yeah. Then what happened to homes?
Yeah, start going more supply than demand.
That's right.
Values go down, and the builders won't have the influence that they do right now.
But it's interesting that it had to be something sudden that happened like that. In other words, if builders build more and more houses, they're going to slow down when there starts to be a glut on the market because they're not going to make as much money on them. And they paid a lot for the land. And so what actually caused it in 2007 was the sudden shift in financing with the banks in their financing policy.
Mhm.
And so I don't know what will happen to slow this one down, but there will definitely be something in the future that will slow it down. And yes, it will, the prices will level out when it happens. So
Hey, Gary, on our processes, is there a time frame that recorders are the county recorders are required to record the Mylar, or, you know, for subdivisions, or can they hold that for, so, you know, like how we have a building permit and they've said you've got to get these building permits out in a certain time frame,
yes,
and our reviews, it seems like there's a lot of those, the legislature's imposed a lot of those deadlines. But is there one like that on development? So when a development's ready to go, that, you know,
No.
it takes them a long time to get that subdivision request recorded, or is that
Well,
hasn't been attacked yet?
so is the problem that the developer's not taking it to the recorder for a while? Is that the problem?
No, once they submit it, it doesn't get recorded for a while.
It's recorder.
Oh, really?
I just wondered if, like, that's a painful process sometimes, and kind of a bottleneck in the whole development process. And I just wonder, because building officials have been attacked, right?
Yeah.
And I just wondered, are they under the same pressure to record plats, because you can't sell a lot, right? Or you can't get a building permit until your development's been recorded. But that process could take a long time, depending on.
No, that's a great point. I don't know of any restriction on recording, which
Or
is
time frame or turnaround. It's just, I just wondered if that's a common theme.
Oh, wow. Wow. You know what? You just raised a really good issue. Maybe I'll exchange that for the restrictions on us.
You're welcome.
We'll trade the restrictions on us for for a restriction on the recorders.
I would say, you know, from my experience with the recorders, I think it depends on the office and on the actual individual recorder. I mean, I've had some experiences where it took forever, and then other ones, I just barely bought some property up in Cache Valley, and they turned around within 2 weeks, had it done.
You know, we've never had a problem in Davis County that I know of, because almost the day that it's, within a couple of days after it's filed, it's recorded. I don't think we've ever had a problem. And I don't know that, that the recording is what actually gives them permission to, it's considered recorded when it actually goes into the office, which is kind of interesting. So that shouldn't prevent them from selling lots or doing what they need to do, but that's interesting. I'll check on that. That's a great question. That's one that I haven't ever come up against before. So.
Anything else? Any other questions? Okay.
Just,
We
I don't,
appreciate Go ahead.
not a question, but maybe just close with this. In the league meeting yesterday, Gary was invited to give a presentation. I think it was on the HB 98. Is that right, Gary?
That's the one that we've been talking about.
Yeah. But and I think you were explaining that and the different positions and negotiating that you had done with the league. But the meeting up to that point was pretty quiet. Gary gets on, and you must have a lot of fans, Gary, because holy smokes, that chat room just lit right up.
They had pitchforks, and they had definitely had fire.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you got a lot of fans out there.
That was entertaining, to say the least.
Yeah, no, you did a good job.
I don't tell anybody where I live. I don't give my phone number.
It's a good move.
But we are working and battling back over that one, and I think we're making progress with leadership. They think that the original bill is a pain. So
sounds like there is some progress on it. Good.
Thanks, David.
Well, then help clarify for me again that the housing one, for the apartment, for the rental piece, we're not talking about someone building a separate home in their backyard, and that part's gone away.
That's correct. Mayor.
Okay, all right, appreciate that, okay, all right. Anything else from any of the council members? Gary, Denise? Okay, all right, I'll declare this meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you again for all your efforts, your input. Good night.
Good meeting. Yep. Good night.